Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, family, and everybody else, such a great pleasure to be with you today on the latest edition of Real Talk with Billy and Cory, live from our homes in Zoom University. Hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Hot Take Billy Parvatam on hand, joined by my podcast partner, Uncle Cornelius Michael. Some people call him Cory Van Dyke. Cory, it's great to be back with you for another one on Real Talk, our first one since the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's great to be back, and it's my personal favorite time of the year. This is March. March Madness is here. We have our bracket in our hands for the first time in over 700 days, so super excited for that. Obviously missing out on it last year, but cannot wait for the action to get started this Thursday already.
Yes, sir. That's the best 4 days in sports, though. Thursday through Sunday, that first round. So many games, so many teams, so many upsets, so many great storylines. We also have a special guest today for the first time on the podcast is none other than Mr. Zahid Khan, who is an assistant account manager at Genesco Sports Enterprises. We know him because he's also a Virginia Tech alum. In fact, he graduated the same year as me, class of 2019. Me and him actually had a graduation, so we're very grateful for that. But Zahid, thank you for joining us from Manhattan, New York City.
Appreciate it, Billy. That was a hell of an introduction there. Top-notch quality stuff. But happy to be on board with you guys. Thank you guys for inviting me. And like Cory said, this is one of my favorite times of the year as well. So I'm excited. We finally get to do a bracket after a 2-year wait. I think we're all grateful to be having these conversations compared to last year. And I'm ready to dive deep into it with you guys today.
For sure. And we're also going to have a chance to talk about your career because you've done some fantastic things already, both while you were in college and since you've been out the last few years. So very excited to get to hear your stories about that. But first, let's talk about it, fellas. March Madness, the tournament starts Thursday with the first four, followed by the first and second rounds Friday through Monday. Let's just talk about, Zahid, you mentioned it, the fact that we have not had this tournament for 2 years. We all remember last year finding out that coronavirus was really hitting us as a country, as a world. And really the first piece that fell as a result of that was the March Madness tournament. It was canceled. So, Zahid, I'll go to you first. You just talked about it. How does it feel to just have March Madness again after 2 years? It really just feels like this is the start. Obviously, we still got a long way to go in terms of getting people vaccinated and really making a lot of other things happen. But this seems like the first start to, like, man, some semblance of what we love about sports and life is back with the March Madness tournament.
Exactly. I 100% agree with you, Billy. Sports has been a huge component to us kind of getting back life to normal, starting with last fall, finally getting to see sports again. And it's been quite a path. I think we've seen on so many different levels in college sports as well. But I'm really grateful, and I think we all are really grateful that the student athletes were able to, stay safe and be able to, continue to have the season. And then especially, with all the obstacles they had over doing, having all these COVID tests. So it's been quite a challenge for them. But I'm happy we've been able to make it this far. And, the NCAA tournament, it's not similar. You weren't hearing the games out of Arizona or the games out of DC or the games out of Washington. It was, we're all going to be in a big bubble in Indianapolis. So it's going to be something like we've never seen before. Limited fans and stands. So, there's going to be some different components this year. I think this is probably one of the most unpredictable brackets we've had in a while, considering all the elements. Who knows if all the teams that we're talking about today are even going to be competing this Thursday. We have backup teams. Who would have thought that would have happened? But, I think at the end of the day, watching Selection Sunday last night, hearing the team announce the picks, I think everybody kind of felt some normalcy there. And it was just I had a big smile on my face the whole time, just kind of hearing all the teams, seeing the players' reactions, and then especially seeing the Hokies make their way into the tournament. So technically, kind of the fourth year in a row. But some people have some say on that one.
Yeah, I maintain I've been at Virginia Tech 6 years. The only 2 times they have not made the NCAA tournament. The first year they went 10-8, and the ACC had a really bad conference record. But honestly, if they had won a couple more out of conference games, probably would have made the tournament, at least as a bubble team. And then last year there was no tournament. So I've been pretty lucky in 6 years. The Hokies have made it pretty much every year. Cory, what is so special about March Madness? I mean, if you had to describe it to someone who's never watched it before, how do you describe it as one of the most special events in all of sports?
I mean, I think you really look at it, and it is just the culmination of the student athlete experience all coming together over a course of really it's the first two weekends, the first weekend that's just spectacular. The Thursday through Sunday, like normally is this year, it's Thursday through Monday with the additional week or the additional day added on. But I mean, I think you look at it and it really gives these smaller schools a chance to make a name for themselves. That's the thing about it, is you have those Cinderella runs every year. You have a team like VCU, like George Mason, being from Virginia, seeing those teams go to the Final Four. You have a team like UMBC beat UVA and really put themselves on the map from a school. I think, you looked at that before that Twitter account had like 3,000 followers. And right after that, they're upwards of 100,000, in the course of a night, just because all eyes are watching them in that point. So that really is the joy of it. It's all these student athletes, their hard work coming together and really in a spot where they're in the national audience right there. They're there to see these people watching, to see the hard work that they put in over the years. And it's really just the culmination of all of that. It's the last game for a lot of these guys because, the majority of these players don't go on to play professionally. So they're putting their heart and tears into this at the very end. It really is just everything that you want from a basketball standpoint, to see these kids come together and to see them really kind of lay it out on the line in a winner take all, win or lose type environment, because NBA, it's best of 7 series. Pretty much all professional sports are best of whatever series, but this is literally win or go home, with the exception of football, of course. But this is literally win or go home, and you got to put your best foot forward for 6 straight games to win that national championship.
Well, let's talk about specifically this year's bracket, guys. I mean, so many great storylines. First of all, Duke and Kentucky, 2 prestigious programs, have not made the tournament for the first time since 1976, that both of those teams did not make the tournament. But still, we've got a lot of great teams. We've got a perennial powerhouse program. Gonzaga's in it. We've got Baylor, a #1 seed. Michigan with Juwan Howard. They seem to be back trying to make a run. We've got so many other teams just have a really good shot of going deep in this tournament. Zahid, what would you say is maybe the one storyline you're looking forward to? Any team, just the tournament overall, one storyline, give me one. Man, this is something we have to look forward to as fans.
Yeah, I think the one storyline is going to be, how our team's going to adapt with limited fans and stands, and how are they going to be able to, continue any momentum they've had coming in the regular season and the tournament games in the NCAA tournament. Teams like UVA, who's a high seed, Kansas, they're on pause. They're not able to practice. They're going to be flying in last minute versus teams that have, already been in Indianapolis for the past couple of days. So it's going to be interesting to see how, some of those higher seeds like the Kansas and UVAs are going to be able to adapt to these circumstances. And just overall the bracket as a whole, it's crazy how the elements that we're in and which teams are going to be able to adapt. So I think that's going to be one of the key storylines going into this NCAA tournament.
Cory, anything you want to talk about in terms of a generic storyline or maybe specific teams you're looking forward to? We'll make our bracket picks in a second here, but anything in general really stand out to you?
I mean, I think the main storyline for a specific team is Gonzaga and the chance to go undefeated, to become the first undefeated champion since 1976 when the Indiana Hoosiers did it. I mean, we've seen teams in the past. I know that Kentucky team, I think it was 2015, I want to say, made it all the way through the regular season undefeated before losing in the Final Four to Wisconsin. A lot of people thought that was going to be the team. And Gonzaga has pretty much steamrolled its competition all year long, with the exception of a 5-point win over West Virginia. They've beaten every team by 10 plus points. They really didn't have much competition other than the West Coast Conference final against BYU, where they were down at the half, but went on to win that second half by double digits. So I think you look at Gonzaga and just the way they've kind of gone through the competition this year, kind of looks like that team from start to finish that has a chance to get it done, and becomes the question now, will they get it done? Gonzaga's always kind of had that kind of aura around them. They're this, a basketball school. Obviously, they don't have a football team or anything like that. They're in a West Coast conference. People don't really think much of them. And over the years, they've had these dominant teams, but having Mark Few, one of the best coaches in college basketball, but they haven't won a national championship. I think this is clearly their best team, their best shot to do it. So I think that's going to be the big storyline to kind of follow from one specific team standpoint.
Guys, I'm looking forward to whether or not the Big 12 or the Big 10 can have a champion in this bracket. I mean, I think combined they've got 16 teams, 9 from the Big 10, and you've got 7 from the Big 12. Cory, I know you and I have talked about, especially with these Big 12 teams, you really feel like for the most part, outside of Baylor, at least if you compare the regular season record, all those other teams, Texas Tech, Texas, Oklahoma State, really kind of West Virginia, all in the middle right there, and you couldn't really separate, the next bunch of teams. So I'm really excited to see if some of these conferences like the Big 12 and the Big 10 that have a lot of teams, if they can finally break away and maybe have one of them being crowned a champion, maybe multiple teams in the Final Four. But guys, let's get right to our bracket picks. Very excited. I know we were talking before this recording. Both me and Cory basically went through our brackets 15 minutes or so before we started this recording. And, so we're interested to see what happens. What we're going to do is I'll say let's go with the West region first. We'll just do a quick express round who we're going to pick with who are quick one-word picks for the game. And then once we're done with who made the Final Four from that region.
Sorry, I think we lost Billy over there.
I was going to say he's he's frozen over there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll work on getting Zahid back here. But
it's getting in the heat of the moment, too. This is the moment people are waiting for.
For sure. What I was basically saying is we'll do an express round. And once we're done talking about the region with our picks, we'll kind of do a more in-depth discussion. So because we're all Virginia Tech grads, I will keep that one for last and do the other regions first, guys. But let's talk about Gonzaga's side of the bracket first. So Gonzaga versus the 16 seed, or that's Norfolk State or App State. Cory, one word, who you picking? I'd be really shocked here.
Gonzaga.
You got Gonzaga?
That's all you got.
App State, they've done some upsets in their days, but I think Gonzaga is going to come on top of this one.
All right, let's go with the 2 seed Iowa versus GCU. Who do you got, Cory, in that game?
I'll take Iowa right there.
All right, Zahid?
Yeah, Luke Garza's a monster, so I got to take Iowa as well.
All right, let's go with the 8-9 matchup.
You're not saying who you're taking, Billy.
Oklahoma and Missouri.
You're not saying who you've been taking, Billy.
Oh, well, my bad. I mean, Gonzaga and Iowa. I'm sorry, guys. I'm very predictable. I'm going with the 1 and 2 seeds. But, Cory, how about Missouri and Oklahoma?
I'll take Oklahoma right there.
All right, interesting. Zahid, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a great matchup. The 8-9 seeds are always a great game, but I think I'm also going to go with Oklahoma.
Dang, we just keep agreeing. Hopefully we disagree at some point. I'm going with Oklahoma. I just think the Big 12 conference was the best conference. They played some great games, and they're going to Oklahoma. All right, 12-5 matchup. Statistically, I think I've read that's the one where the upsets happen the most. So in this region, we've got Creighton and USC. BNO Jay Billis was talking about UC Santa Barbara. Cory, who do you got in this matchup?
I'm going to stay chalk right here. I'm going to go Creighton.
All right, Zahid?
Similar to Cory, going to go chalk. I'm going to go Creighton. My upset is going to come soon. It is in this region, but stay tuned.
I also agree with you guys, Creighton. So every pick so far, we agree. Let's move to UVA and Ohio, Cory. UVA is technically the defending champion if you want to make the argument. We haven't played in 2 years, but do you think Ohio pulls off the upset?
A real professional should do 2 brackets because you want to have different things here and there. So I do have Ohio in my second bracket, but the main bracket we're talking about here, I'm going to go with UVA still.
All right, Zahid?
Like we talked about in the beginning, this COVID pause is going to play an impact. Ohio's got the hot hand, so we'll see how much momentum plays. With that being said, I'm going to go with the team with the momentum. Ohio upsets.
Whoa. Okay, so Zahid with the first big upset on the board. I am going to stick with Cory, go with UVA. I think they'll have enough to get it done in the first round. And then we have USC, Southern California, just for clarification, versus the winner of Wichita State and Duke. Drake did not make the tournament. Cory, who do you have in this matchup?
I'm going to go USC there as well.
All right, Zahid?
Stay in chalk.
6-11 matchups are always intriguing. I think both of these teams are good teams in Wichita State and Drake, so whoever comes on top is going to be a good game. But I think I'm going to lean USC on this one here.
All right. I will also go with USC, so all in agreement there. Kansas and EWU. Cory, who do you have in this matchup? Kansas, of course, they're going to play in the tournament, but obviously had a positive test that kicked them out of the Big 12 tournament. So who do you have in this matchup?
Yeah, and it was reported that their wing player, their freshman Jalen Wilson, one of their starters, will not be available for the first 2 games that opening weekend. So something to think about there potentially if you want to do a way out of the realm upset. You could pick Eastern Washington here, but I'm going to stay with Kansas.
All right, and then Zahid, who do you have in this matchup?
Sticking with Kansas as well.
All right, I will also go with Kansas, and then the last matchup of the first round of this region, Oregon and VCU. Cory, I knew you grew up a VCU fan. Are you going to pick them to upset Oregon?
I am not. I really actually like this Oregon team, so I'm going to ride Dana Altman and the Ducks there.
All right, Zahid?
Also riding the Ducks. I was surprised. Honestly, this might be a hot take. I was kind of surprised to see 2 A-10 teams in there. they've been an interesting conference, but I'm going to roll Oregon.
All right, I will also go with Oregon. So for the most part, I couldn't keep track, but we seem to agree on most picks. Zahid with the big upset, Ohio over UVA in the first round. So predicted second round, and you guys will have to help me keep track of this because I know we might have different matchups. But I believe all of us had Gonzaga and Oklahoma. Cory, who do you have winning that potential matchup?
Yeah, I'm riding the Zags there. I think they get it done.
All right, Zahid?
Similar to Cory, Zaga.
I will also go with the Bulldogs as well. So, Cory, I believe you and me had Creighton and UVA. Who would you have winning that matchup?
I'm going to have Creighton moving on. I think their guard play is spectacular. They have a good shooting team. That's what you need to do to beat UVA. So I have Creighton getting it done.
Zahid, you had Creighton and Ohio. Who do you have winning that matchup?
It doesn't feel right saying Creighton to the Sweet 16, but yes, Creighton to the Sweet 16.
I agree with Cory. UVA will advance to the Sweet 16. We all had USC and Kansas. I think there might be some disagreement potentially on this one. Cory, who do you have in this matchup?
I actually have USC moving on in this one. I think Evan Mobley, he's going to be a top 3 pick this year. I think he gets it done for the Trojans moving forward.
Zahid?
Kansas.
I have USC as well. I think they will beat Kansas and advance to the Sweet 16. So in our Sweet 16 matchups, Cory and I have Gonzaga and UVA.
You skipped Oregon and Iowa.
Cory, you have excuse me, we did not do Iowa. You are correct. Oregon and Iowa, who do you have in that, Cory?
I'm going to ride Iowa there. I was close to picking, and I think I did actually pick Oregon in my other bracket, but I'm going to go with the Hawkeyes there.
And Zahid?
Also going with the Hawkeyes.
All right, I will also go with the Hawkeyes as well. So now in our potential Sweet 16 matchup, let's go with Gonzaga, UVA. Cory, who do you have in that matchup? Would be a great one.
I have Gonzaga versus Creighton, and I have the Zags advancing there.
Okay, so you have Creighton winning that game. I have Gonzaga winning in that game. And then, Zahid, who do you have in that matchup? I know you had Creighton in that against Gonzaga.
Yeah, I have Zaga advancing.
All right, so for the most part, we agree on that matchup. USC and Iowa. Cory, who do you have in that matchup?
I have Iowa beating USC. They're advancing to the Elite Eight.
Zahid, actually, I think I'm starting to lose track of who picked who. So who would you have in that matchup?
I still have Iowa. I still have Iowa over there.
All right, I have Iowa as well, and I will pick them to advance to the Elite Eight. So Elite Eight, I have Gonzaga and Iowa. Zahid, I believe you have the same matchup as well. So Zahid, I'll go with you first. Who do you have, Gonzaga versus Iowa?
I'm still riding Gonzaga. I think they'll make it that far.
I believe you are right too. I will go with Gonzaga. Cory, who do you have winning in your potential Elite Eight matchup?
Yeah, I have Gonzaga over Iowa. I mean, I think you look at this and Gonzaga, I think they have the easiest path of any team to the Final Four. So it looks like all 3 of us have Gonzaga advancing to the Final Four.
All right, so we do agree with that. And Zahid, just to kind of open this up a little bit, do you think who is the biggest threat to Gonzaga? We all agree, but if you have to say one team, you're like, man, this is the team, best shot in this side of the bracket to upset Gonzaga, who would it be?
That's a great question. I don't think they honestly get challenged much. If somehow UVA does get to the Sweet 16, then I think that offensive matchup versus what UVA's traditionally done on defense, if they can kind of realm in that world again, I think then maybe a 1-4 seed matchup if UVA can make it that far and bring a challenge. But I think similar to what Cory said, I think Gonzaga has a pretty being the number 1 overall seed, that they have a pretty good matchups in this tournament.
Cory, why do you think Gonzaga has the easiest road to the Final Four out of really all the 1 seeds, I guess, in this bracket?
I mean, you look at their region already, and the 2, 3, and 4 seeds in their region, they've beaten all 3 of those teams by double digits already. So they're familiar against these teams. They've proven they're going to beat those teams. So I mean, if you ask that same question you asked to Zahid, I think the team that could cause them the most trouble, honestly, might be a team like Oregon. If they're able to go on this giant run and advance and be a 7 seed, go into the Elite Eight and face them, I think they could cause them some trouble. But I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed not to pick Gonzaga to make the Final Four in this region.
I agree with you guys. The stigma against Gonzaga has been they don't play anybody. Well, this year they played a lot of good opponents. They blew out UVA. They won on the road at West Virginia in a close game, and they were able to knock off a couple of other teams that are some pretty good out of conference in terms of schedule. So I agree with you guys. So we all agree Gonzaga will go to the Final Four out of the West region. Let's now move on to the East. I think this is going to be a fun bracket to talk about. Michigan, of course, is the number 1 seed. They will play the number 16 seed, SMM, or looks like TXSO. I'm assuming, I'm not really saying the actual name of these colleges because I'm assuming both you guys are going to pick Michigan in that matchup. Zahid, is that correct?
Correct.
And Cory, I'm assuming you're going
Picking
with
Michigan.
All right, so I will also go with Michigan. Let's go with the Alabama-Iona matchup. By the way, Iona, Rick Pitino, back in the NCAA tournament. I thought it was kind of funny because Duke, Louisville, and Kentucky didn't make the tournament, but Rick Pitino and Iona did. So at least more intriguing on paper than you would think for a 15-2 matchup. But Cory, I know you're big on Alabama. Are you picking them to win this first round matchup?
I am picking the Crimson Tide there. Yes, Roll Tide.
Zahid, are you rolling Tide as well?
I am rolling Tide. Iona is not too far away from me, and I think that team will be back here next week.
Yep, I will also go with Alabama as well. Let's go with the 8-9 matchup. We got LSU and SBU. Cory, who do you have?
Yeah, so St. Bonaventure is actually a team I was really interested in. I think they were kind of ranked a little too low here, and the same with LSU. I think LSU could have been I think LSU could have been a lot lower seed, like a 7 or a 6 even. So I will take the Tigers here.
I will also go with the Tigers. Zahid, who do you have in this matchup?
I've heard a lot about the Bonnies and some positive things about them, but the competition that LSU plays, I think I'm going to go with the SEC Tigers.
All right. So how about this 5-12 matchup, Cory? We've got Colorado and Georgetown. Georgetown, of course, surprised everybody by winning the Big East tournament, led by their head coach, NBA Hall of Famer Patrick Ewing. Do you think Georgetown has what it takes to upset Colorado in this matchup?
If the game was played today, I could say maybe because they could keep the momentum rolling. But with a week off and with the hot hands kind of slowing down, I'm going to take Colorado in this one.
Zahid, who do you have in this matchup?
This was a tough one. I think Georgetown has a lot to prove, but I think I'm going to go chalk and go Colorado.
And I will pick Georgetown to win this matchup. I think they're riding the momentum. I think it would be a great story, Patrick Ewing, to lead this team to an NCAA tournament win. I will pick Georgetown in this 12-5 matchup. So a little bit of disagreement there. Let's now go to Florida State and UNCG. Cory, who do you have in this matchup?
I got the Seminoles moving on.
Zahid, who do you have between the Seminoles and UNCG?
Seminoles.
I will also go with FSU as well. Let's now move to BYU versus Michigan State and UCLA. I guess really you could say it depends on who wins that game between the Spartans and the Bruins. But Cory, who do you have winning this matchup?
I'm going to have Michigan State beating UCLA and then beating BYU. I think Izzo gets it done in March, and he marches on in the first round win there.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I am also going with Michigan State to beat UCLA and beat BYU. Zahid, do you agree with us?
I agree with you guys. That's 6-11 matchups. I think I agree with you guys on that one.
All right, now let's go to Texas and ACU. I'm big on Texas, but I'll wait to make my pick. Cory, who do you have winning this game?
I'm going to take Texas there. I think that the Longhorns get it done.
Zahid, do you agree?
Agreed. Texas.
I will also go with the Longhorns as well. And then the final matchup we have in the first round of this region is Connecticut and Maryland. Might be some interesting takes here. Cory, who do you have?
I'm going to take UConn. I think the Huskies, they're going to be a team to watch in this region.
Zahid?
I couldn't disagree as much on that one, Cory. I'm going to go UMD all over UConn on that one. I think whatever the line is, I'll probably put 5.5 on UConn. Sorry, on UMD. Like, I think Maryland wins easy.
I will agree with you, Zahid. I am also going with Maryland. I think they played in the Big Ten, which is obviously a very good conference. If you see the representation in this tournament, I think they upset UConn in this matchup. So let's go to the second round of this region. I believe all of us had Michigan and LSU. Cory, who would you have winning that matchup?
I'm going to take the Wolverines to move on there.
Zahid?
Agreed.
Wolverines. I will also take the Wolverines as well. I had Georgetown and FSU. I will pick FSU to advance. I believe both of you guys had Colorado playing FSU. Cory, who would you have in that matchup?
Yeah, I'm going to have Florida State advance in there.
Zahid, do you agree?
Agreed. Yeah, Florida State.
All right. So I believe all three of us also had Michigan State versus Texas. Cory, you think Tom Izzo keeps it going, or do you think Texas will win this one?
I do not think he keeps it going. I think Shaka Smart and the Longhorns get it done there.
Zahid?
Yeah, I agree with Cory there. I think Texas is going to pull this one off.
I also agree that Texas will win this game. And then we also have Alabama and Maryland for me and Zahid. Cory had UConn. Zahid, who do you have in an Alabama-Maryland matchup?
I have Alabama pulling that one off. I think they're a high-scoring offense, and they're going to be able to get the job done against Maryland.
Roll Tide. Cory, who do you have between UConn and Alabama?
I have the Huskies advancing. UConn, another Cinderella team led by James Boonite. Ever since he's come back, they've been a different team. I have the Huskies advancing there for first big upset.
All right. So there's an interesting pick right there. So now let's move to our Sweet 16 matchups. Believe all of us had Michigan and Florida State. Cory, would be an exciting matchup. Who do you have?
I have the Seminoles moving on. I think as a 4 seed, I think Michigan's the first 1 seed to go down here. I have Florida State and Leonard Hamilton advancing.
I agree with you, Cory. I will go with Florida State. I think Livers being out probably for the tournament. I mean, he was in a boot the other day. I don't know how he plays. I think it's going to hurt once they start getting to the good teams, which is likely in the Sweet 16. I think Florida State will beat Michigan. Zahid, do you agree?
I think it's going to be a great game, but I'm going to go with the 1 seed here. I think the Wolverines pull this one off.
All right. And then I have me and Zahid have Texas and Alabama. So Zahid, who would you have in that matchup?
I'm going to roll with the Roll Tide offense.
I will disagree. Actually, I'm going with Texas. I'm a big fan of Matt Coleman, so I will pick the Longhorns in that matchup. And Cory, I believe you had UConn and Texas, and who would you have in that?
I have the UConn Huskies advancing again. They are my Cinderella team, advancing all the way to the Elite Eight right here. Like I said, James Boonite. That is a name people will remember by the end of this tournament.
All right, so quite a matchup right there. So Zahid, I believe you had Michigan and Roll Tide, Alabama in the Elite Eight. Who do you have in that matchup?
Correct. I think this one's going to be a toss-up. This is a coin flip. Honestly, you might find a coin right now and flip it. I like Alabama, but I'm going to roll with Michigan.
Okay, all right. So Michigan is Zahid's Final Four team from the East region. Cory, who do you have in your matchup?
So I have Florida State versus UConn, the old 4 versus 7 matchup here in the Elite Eight. I'm going to go with Leonard Hamilton and the Seminoles. Leonard Hamilton, one of the, I think, most underrated coaches, gets to his first Final Four. Seminoles get it done.
Okay, I was about to say you would have been really crazy if you picked UConn to go to the Final Four. So I'm glad you didn't go that far. But I will go with the Longhorns to make the Final Four. My big thing, guys, is I believe the Texas Longhorns have 3 guys who shoot 80% or more from the free throw line. I think many of these March Madness games are close. You want guys at the line who are automatic in those late situations, led by Matt Coleman. That's why I like the Longhorns to go a long way in this matchup. So I have Texas. Zahid has Michigan, and Cory has Florida State. So we all disagree on that. But Cory, let's talk about this region real quick before we transition. I mean, what intrigues you so much? It seems like there really are a couple teams that could make a deep run in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the region that is, you could have 5 or 6 different teams make the Final Four. And I don't think that's an understatement. I really think this is anybody's region. And I think it's the one that, you know, you look at it and you say, like, I mean, I have UConn. I'm really high on UConn. I think they could also, like you guys picked, to get bounced in the first round by Maryland. I think Alabama could certainly, and that's what most of you guys did, pick them to beat them in that second round. And I think Alabama is a team that'll be a popular pick to go to the Final Four from this region. Michigan obviously will be a popular pick. Florida State, who I had, and Texas, who you had, Billy. So I mean, I think this is a region where it is the most competitive. I feel like it's the one where I think there will be a lot of chaos. So that's what I kind of went with. But yeah, you look at it, and I think Michigan is the most vulnerable 1 seed in my opinion. So I think that kind of plays into it as well. With Livers potentially being out, and just they didn't look like the same team down the stretch. So that's kind of the impressions I get from this region, because there is always that one region every year where it's just complete chaos, complete wackiness. So I figured this was going to be the region it is this year.
Zahid, in my opinion, I think if you compare the 1, 2, 3 seeds from each region, I think you can make an argument this region, the East region, has the best out of those 3 combinations. What intrigues you so much about the East region?
I couldn't agree with more with Corey here. I think, every year when you look at your bracket and you're like, man, where did I mess up? And you're going to scroll through it, you're going to look at the East region and be like, man, that's a lot of red. There's a lot of red in that region. This region is chaos. So, there's a lot of talented teams in this region. I think from, the 1 to 16 teams, that all of these teams have studs. There's another region we're going to go to where I think there's some dud teams in there. But this team, like Corey said, I could see Florida State pulling something off, Texas, Alabama. Kind of feel bad for some of these teams that they got, put in such a tough situation. But there's no easy matchup. I think that even the 8-9, the Bonnies, they're going to have a good one. Colorado, Georgetown. I think from the top down, this is going to be the most intriguing conference and the most bracket busting conference for sure.
I will say it would be cool if Alabama was able to go on a deep run, because we know they're great at football, but if they were able to win in basketball too, I mean, that would be something else. I think the only time it's happened was in 06, 07 when Florida was able to win both the football and the basketball championships. But let's now move to the Midwest. Zahid, I have a feeling this might have been the conference you were talking about is a dud, led by number 1 Illinois. I think I speak for everybody. We all agree Illinois will beat number 16 Drexel.
That's correct.
All right, so Illinois will advance in that matchup. Houston versus Cleveland State. Corey, I know me and you have talked about Houston being a team you fade in the tourney. Do you think we should fade them in the first round?
No, you can't fade them in the first round, but I will have Houston winning that one.
All right, I will also go with Houston. Zahid, do you agree?
Yep, also got Houston.
All right, and then in the 8-9 matchup, we have Loyola Chicago. We all remember that Cinderella run to the Final Four they made a few years ago against the ACC tournament champion Georgia Tech. Corey, who do you have in this matchup?
I have Georgia Tech. I think it was kind of baffling that Georgia Tech wins the ACC and gets a 9 seed. I think they should have been around a 7 seed or something like that. So I have Georgia Tech advancing there.
I also have Georgia Tech advancing. Zahid, do you agree?
I agree with you guys. Yep.
All right, and then we have the 5-12 matchup, Tennessee versus Oregon State. Corey, who do you have in this matchup?
I have the Volunteers, Tennessee, moving on.
Zahid?
Agreed. I got the Volunteers as well.
I will pick my second 12 seed to upset a 5 seed. I am going with Oregon State. I believe, they did very well in the conference, Pac-12 conference this year. I think that carries over to the NCAA tournament. So I'm going with Oregon State to upset Tennessee, the 12/5. Oklahoma State, we all love Cade Cunningham. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick. Corey, against Liberty, will you pick him to advance?
I will pick Cade Cunningham and Oklahoma State to advance there.
Zahid, who do you have in this matchup?
Agreed. I'm going to go with Cade Cunningham and Oklahoma State.
I will also have Oklahoma State advancing. San Diego State, who won their conference just a couple of days ago against Syracuse for the 6-11 matchup. Corey, who do you have in this matchup?
I'm going to go with SDSU. I'm high on them. I like the Aztecs a lot.
I will also go with the Aztecs. I think you can never count out Jim Boeheim, but I think this San Diego State team is a little too good for him in the first round. Zahid, who you have in this matchup?
I'm a big analytics guy, so I think you got to kind of play the numbers a little bit, and I need a 6-11. I think Syracuse is that 11 team. If Buddy Boeheim can go off like he's been doing, and that, San Diego State can't adjust to that defense, I think, the Aztecs are in for a potential hard matchup there. So I'm going to roll with Syracuse pulling off the upset.
All right. And we have West Virginia and Morehead State. We all remember, I think it was almost 10 years ago now, Morehead State upset Louisville in that first round matchup. A great victory. Corey, who do you have winning this matchup?
I don't see Morehead getting it done again. I have West Virginia marching on.
I also agree with West Virginia. Zahid, what do you think?
Cue Country Road taking me home. I think they get past the first round.
All right. And then we have Clemson and Rutgers. This will be an interesting matchup. Corey, who do you have winning?
I'm going to take the Scarlet Knights there. I think, like you've kind of mentioned a couple of times, Billy, the Big Ten competition is a lot better than the ACC competition that Clemson has faced this year.
Zahid?
So toss-up. By the way, I'm going to go with the Tigers. This is a real tough matchup here. So
I will also go with the Tigers advancing. So we all have Illinois and Georgia Tech advancing to the second round. Corey, who do you have winning this matchup?
I'm going to have Illinois marching on.
Zahid?
I think Georgia Tech's going to give it all they have, but it won't be enough. Illinois.
You took the words out of right in my mouth. I think it'll be a great game, but I also will pick Illinois to advance to the Sweet 16. So we have Oklahoma State against Tennessee for both Cory and Zahid. Zahid, who do you have winning that matchup?
I'm gonna roll with Cade Cunningham, and maybe they have a little more firepower left to get to the Sweet 16.
You rolling with Cade, Cory?
I am rolling with Cade, yes, sir.
I will also roll with Cade to advance to the Sweet 16. In our next matchup, me and Cory have San Diego State and West Virginia. Cory, who do you have winning that?
I really wanted to take San Diego State here if it just so happens they're playing against another team that I like, West Virginia. So I do have the Mountaineers moving on, but I will say I do have San Diego State in my other bracket going to the Elite Eight, so watch out for them potentially.
I agree with you. Country Roads, take me home. West Virginia, take them to the Sweet 16. Zahid, who do you have winning your matchup with Syracuse and West Virginia?
I have West Virginia pulling this one off.
All right. So for the most part, we have about the same teams advancing. So we all have Illinois and Oklahoma State in the I didn't mention Clemson and Houston, by the way. Zahid had that matchup as well. Who do you have winning that?
I think that's gonna be a tough one. I think if Houston gets any, if they end up in the East Conference or East region where they had Texas, I think they would have fell, but I think they squeaked by Clemson.
I agree with you. This is probably the weakest region. I will go with Houston. Cory, who do you have with Houston and Rutgers?
I'm going to take Houston as well.
All right. So let's now talk about our Sweet 16 matchups. Illinois and Oklahoma State. That would be a terrific game. Cory, who do you have winning this game?
I'm going to take the Illini to move forward.
Zahid?
Illinois as well.
I will go with Oklahoma State to upset Illinois. I have a feeling Cade Cunningham is going to have a special NCAA tournament. I will pick them to move on to the Elite Eight. And then we also have West Virginia and Houston, I believe. All three of us. Cory, who do you have in that matchup?
I'm going to take West Virginia there. I think they just have a little more offensive fire to get it done against a tough-minded defensive team in Houston.
Zahid?
Yep, going to agree with Cory here. I'm going to go with the Mountaineers.
I also agree Houston will have a problem with West Virginia and will not advance. So I have Oklahoma and West Virginia. Zahid and Cory, I believe, have Illinois and West Virginia. Cory, who do you have winning that Elite Eight matchup going to the Final Four?
And I have Illinois marching on to the Final Four. I think Ayo Dosunmu is going to have a special March Madness. I think, it's all about guard play in March, and I think he gets it done for them.
Zahid?
I'm going to agree with Cory there. I'm going to go with Illinois over West Virginia.
I have Oklahoma State and West Virginia, and I will go with Cade Cunningham. Oklahoma State, I saw him play in the Big 12 tournament. They were fantastic, knocked off Baylor, had a great game against Texas, beat a couple of other good teams. I will go with Oklahoma State to advance to the Final Four. So Cory and Zahid, correct me if I'm wrong, have Illinois, and I have Oklahoma State making the Final Four. So again, let's quickly talk about this side of the bracket. Zahid, was this the bracket you were talking about, maybe the weakest bracket of the four?
I was actually thinking about the South bracket. There's some teams in there that just don't really intrigue me much. But they have some star power there. But this bracket as well in the Midwest, I think it is. There's some questionable teams in there. I think this one has the most up and down teams. Tennessee, a very up and down team. Georgia Tech got hot at the right time. West Virginia, kind of an up and down team. Can they get hot? But I think, in terms of seeds and the competition, I think, if Houston was in the Eastern, region, I think they would have a tougher time, and I think they want to get as far. So I think overall, the teams on this side are kind of, iffy. I want to take a team out of this side of the bracket to make it to the championship game and win it all.
Cory, what are your thoughts? I kind of agree with Zahid. I think that this, matchup is kind of, I think a lot, even my Oklahoma State pick, like you just feel iffy picking that, and I'm sure you guys probably have similar feelings. What are your thoughts about this side of the bracket?
I think this region specifically, I think it has, quality teams, and I think the top four teams can match up with anyone. I think, that Sweet 16 matchup potentially between Illinois and Oklahoma State, that's the one I want to see. I think that game would just be incredible. Illinois is arguably playing the best basketball in the country, and Oklahoma State pretty much was doing that before they lost to Texas. So I think you get two hot teams like that playing against each other. That could be potentially the best game we see. So that's kind of the matchup I'm honing in on and really want to see out of this region.
I just feel like with Oklahoma State, sometimes you can have a great player that really can take you far in the tournament. We all remember that great run Kemba had with UConn. Cade Cunningham just gives me that same vibe. So if I'm going the best player in college basketball, the guy who's going to be the number one overall pick, I just think I like Oklahoma State's chances. They played in the Big 12. I think they have a real shot to really advance to the Final Four. Illinois, I saw him play yesterday against Ohio State. I think Ohio State could have won that game. So Illinois hasn't really impressed me. I'm going with Oklahoma State. But, guys, let's go now to the best bracket for last, the South region, because our Hokies are in this bracket. I'm very excited to see where we go, especially with how far they will go. But I'm not even going to ask you guys about Baylor. They're advancing. I'm sorry to anyone who thinks it's a Hartford fan. I'm sorry. Let's go with Ohio State versus ORU. Cory, who do you have winning this matchup?
Yeah, I got Ohio State, the Buckeyes advancing.
Zahid, you going Buckeyes?
I hope it's Oral Roberts, but I think it's going to be the Buckeyes.
I will also go with the Ohio State University. I think this is a pretty good 8-9 matchup right here, guys. UNC and Wisconsin. Cory, who do you have winning this matchup?
I think, honestly, this might, if we're talking about the biggest bets we're going to place on a game, it'll be on UNC. Wisconsin, I just looked it up earlier. They're 0-9 against top 25 teams this year. So I think you look at that, and UNC, I think, has proven themselves to be a top 25 team over this last couple weeks of the season. I think UNC gets it done easily.
Zahid?
That's a great stat Cory brought up. I didn't know that. I thought this would be one of the most intriguing matchups of the tournament. Wisconsin has a lot of seniors. I feel like UNC is kind of the younger team with more athletic guys. They got all those guys down in paint. So it's going to be a good one. You have guys who are, they could come back next year if they want, but I think they're going to treat this as their last college basketball game. So team that's got everything to lose versus a young athletic team, but I think I'm going to go UNC, and their offensive rebounds are lethal.
I'm going with UNC. I think they're playing well at the right time. They scored 100 on Notre Dame. Honestly, could have beaten Florida State, and you never know what could have happened had they won that game. I think they're playing well right now, led by Roy Williams. I'm going with the Tar Heels. 5-12, Villanova and Winthrop. I feel like we might have a good discussion here. Connor Gillespie, Villanova's leader, is out for the season with his injury. Cory, do you think Villanova could get upset here?
I do. You always have to have 1-12-5, and this is the one I have this year. I do have Winthrop advancing. Very well could have been undefeated this year if not for a 2-point loss earlier in the season. So I think Winthrop, and the way they play up and down the court, they sub in 11 to 12 guys at a time, really keep their guys fresh. I think Winthrop gets it done against a shortened depth team in Villanova without their Gillespie and a hobbled Moore as well. Their backup is actually, I think he was playing with a serious ankle injury last I had seen in the tournament against Georgetown. So I think Winthrop gets it done here.
Zahid, do you think Villanova gets upset?
I feel bad for Villanova, without having Gillespie. I think, it's kind of a bummer to see some teams not having all their best players healthy, just because, you want the tournament to have featuring, teams at their best state. It's a tough one, but I think Villanova dogs it out. I think this is going to be a very popular 12-5 upset, and I can see both sides going either way on this one. So it's been a great game. I think Villanova just finds enough in them to pound it out.
I've already picked 2 12 seeds to upset a 5 seed. I think 3 is too much. This is where I'm going to draw the line. Villanova will advance. How about Purdue and Northern Texas, Cory?
I think Purdue wins that one handily.
Zahid?
Agreed.
I will also go with Purdue. How about this 11-6 matchup with Texas Tech and USU? I haven't been impressed with Texas Tech. I feel like they've been very consistent for most of the season. Cory, do you think Texas Tech will get upset?
I do not. I have Texas Tech and a Chris Beard squad advancing.
Zahid?
Agreed. I got Texas Tech advancing.
I also have Texas Tech advancing. 3-14 matchup, Arkansas and Colgate. Cory, who do you have winning this?
I have Arkansas advancing this one. If you want to look at a game that'll have the most points, this will be the one that they're going to score. I wouldn't be surprised if this game is like 100-85 or something like that. These teams both fly up and down the court.
Zahid?
Agree with Cory. Hammer the over on that one most likely. But I think Arkansas pulls this one off.
I will also go with Arkansas, and I saved the best matchup for last. Virginia Tech versus Florida, the 10-7 matchup. Mike Young in his first NCAA tournament appearance. The Hokies had a number of pauses this season. You guys know Zahid, we forgot to mention, was a former member of the Castle Guard when he was with Virginia Tech as a student. Cory, I'll go with you first. Can the Hokies win this game?
You know, when this matchup was seen, and I actually was kind of I enjoyed it. I think Florida is a team that really hasn't impressed me this year. They had a couple big wins over, Tennessee, but Tennessee hasn't proven to be the team that many thought they were before the year started. So I do have the Hokies advancing here. I think you got to back the Hokie spirit and got to take them with just the job Mike Young has done, especially this year. Projected to finish 11th in conference, and they finished 3rd. So I think he keeps the team together, and the Hokies roll in this first round.
Zahid, you a Castle Guard guy? Are you gonna roll with the Hokies?
What does the shirt say?
Go Hokies.
Go Hokies, man. Look, when the bracket initially came out and I saw Lenardi, going up, leading to March Madness, he had the Hokies pretty low. Obviously Hokies seeing a 10 seed is kind of, initially it was questionable seeing teams how, Georgia Tech, Villanova, Clemson, how they're all ahead of us, even though, we beat Villanova, we beat Clemson. We went 4-0 against top 25 teams. It was kind of surprising to see how low we were. But the way everything shaked out, I'm very happy with this matchups that we have here. I'd rather be playing a 2 seed in the next round than, going against a 1 seed. But you heard it right there. I'd rather be playing a 2 seed. So that means you have to win round 1. So the Hokies, no chomping, no gator chopping going on in Florida this weekend.
And this is the Shane Graham game, by the way, because Shane Graham, we all know, is the iconic kicker for the Hokies. Now he coaches at Florida. I will also go with Virginia Tech. I got to give him at least 1 game. So we all agree, maybe a little biased, but our alma mater will advance to the round of 32. We'll save that matchup for last against Ohio State, but let's go with Baylor and UNC. Cory, who do you have winning this game?
I do have Baylor advancing there. I think they could be on upset alert, honestly, the way they haven't looked themselves since they've returned from the COVID pause. And UNC, I think, is one of the hotter teams right now, but I do have Baylor advancing there.
I also have Baylor. Zahid, do you agree?
Agree to Cory. He took the words out of my mouth. I think UNC is a matchup nightmare down in the paint. They're a unique team. So, but I think Baylor squeaks this one out.
I also agree with Baylor. As I said, we have me and Zahid, Villanova, and Purdue. Zahid, who do you have winning that?
I got Purdue coming out of that one.
Yep. I also agree with you. I will go with Purdue as well. Cory, do you have Purdue advancing against Winthrop?
I do have Purdue over Winthrop there, yes.
All right, Texas Tech and Arkansas. I think that's going to be a good game if it happens, Cory.
Yeah, that's really going to be, if that happens, a clash of styles. Texas Tech, a gritty, hard-nosed team, wants to get it done the defensive end, and Arkansas wants to run up and down the court. I think in March Madness, the defensive team gets it done, so I'm going to take Texas Tech there.
I will also go with Texas Tech. Zahid, do you agree?
It's interesting. The team that wants to run up and down the court, I think they kind of have the conditioning on their side, right? If you're playing 2 games in 4 days, so if Arkansas is going to keep running it back, they might wear out Texas Tech. So I'm gonna roll with the high scoring offense here in Arkansas.
All right, and let's again save the best matchup for last. Virginia Tech versus Ohio State. Cory, does the run end here for the Hokies, or can they beat the Buckeyes?
Yeah, if I'm picking with my head like I am, the run certainly does end here. Ohio State, I think you look at them and just the matchups all over the floor that they would present for the Hokies there, Liddell at center and Washington at point guard, and just their wings that they have. I think the Buckeyes would get it done there.
Zahid?
Like I said, when I saw this matchup come out, see the amount of losses Ohio State had. There are some teams that are winners. Winthrop, they're winners, right? They win a lot of games. Ohio State loses games. Like, they've lost a significant amount of games, so they're inconsistent. I don't think Ohio State fans are super confident in, what team might show up. But with those 1 seeds, they win the games that they're supposed to. They have less than 5 losses. Those marquee matchups, they find ways to win. Ohio State, I can't necessarily say the same for them. I know they play tough competition, but the amount of losses they have, I think it's going to be any given day on what team's going to come out. With that being said, I got to see my Hokies in the Sweet 16 again. I remember the memories a couple of years ago, but I think I got to see them one more time. I'm ready for it.
So you're going with the Hokies?
I'm going with the Hokies.
And I will also go with Virginia Tech to advance the Sweet 16. mostly because I made a bet with Cory that they would. So at this point, I'm all in. So I will go with the Hokies. I'm picking with my heart 100%, but I think they can get it done against Ohio State. So how about that? Me and Zahid agree with that matchup. So we have in the Sweet 16, but Baylor and Purdue. Cory, who do you have winning that game?
I have Baylor advancing. I think the Bears will keep marching on.
Zahid?
I got Baylor as well.
I also agree with Baylor. So again, this is where it's going to get a little bit different here. So I believe me and Zahid both had. Well, actually, no, Zahid had Virginia Tech and Arkansas. You going to pick the Hokies to go to the Elite Eight?
I think this will all be dependent on Jalen Cone. If we're able to get him back, I think even with Jalen Cone, I don't think we'll be able to keep up with Arkansas. So I think as tough as it sounds, the good thing is this whole pod is under the assumption Virginia Tech doesn't win it all. So this is the hypothetical scenario that Virginia Tech doesn't win it all. So in this hypothetical universe, the Hokies run does end here.
I will also say the Hokies run ends here against Texas Tech. I think Texas will be the better Tech over Virginia. But if they even just win one game, I would be happy with the season. We'll see what you guys think about that here in a second when we discuss the whole bracket. But Cory, you had Texas Tech and Ohio State, if I'm not mistaken. So who do you have winning that one?
I have Ohio State moving forward there. I think, like I said, the offensive weapons that they have will be too much for Texas Tech to keep up with.
I will also I already made my pick actually because me and Zahid agreed. So actually, this is interesting because in our Elite Eight, I believe all three of us have a different matchup. Cory, you have Baylor and Ohio State. Who's going to win that matchup?
I have Baylor moving on to the Final Four. I think this team was built for tournament play, and I think they're going to get it done, go to the Final Four here.
Zahid, you have Baylor and Arkansas. Who do you have winning that?
I think Baylor pulls this one off.
I will also go with Baylor over Texas Tech. I think that, they struggled at the end of the the Big 12 tournament, rather. I think they're built for this tournament. And I think, again, their road to the Final Four isn't as hard as some of the other one seeds. So we all agree with Baylor. So, again, I'm trying to keep count. We all had Gonzaga. We all had Baylor. We had a different team for the Midwest and the East. I think, Cory, you and Zahid both had Illinois. But I think for the most part, we're getting some good diversity here. So, obviously, it would be a great Final Four if we're able to have any one of these matchups. But, Cory, I will start with you. You had Gonzaga and Florida State, if I'm not correct, in your Final Four?
That is correct. Gonzaga versus Florida State. I think you look at it, those two teams. Florida State would obviously be a surprise to get there. Gonzaga, not so much. So I'm going to pick Gonzaga to move on to the championship.
Zahid, you had Gonzaga and Michigan, if I'm not mistaken. So 2-1 seeds. Who do you have winning that matchup?
Gonzaga pulling this one off. Gonzaga is a dangerous team. So
I had Gonzaga and Texas. I think Gonzaga is the most complete team in basketball. I will also agree with Gonzaga. So we all agree we have different ways of them getting there, but Gonzaga will be one of the participants in the national championship game this year. And then on the other side of the Final Four, Cory, who do you have in your potential matchup, and who do you have winning that?
So I have Baylor versus Illinois, 2-1 seeds meeting up there. And I do have Illinois moving on here to the national championship. Like I said, Ayo Dosunmu, the combination of him with Kofi Cockburn down low. I think Kofi Cockburn might be the best true big man in this tournament. You can make the assumption for Garza, but I think just his pure brute strength down low, it's going to be hard to stop that guy. I think Illinois moves on against Gonzaga in the national championship.
Okay, and Zahid, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you pick all one seeds to make the Final Four?
Yeah, it's a very chalk bracket. It's a very chalk bracket. We're gonna have to do some work and crank the numbers a little bit because analytically, I don't think this is all possible. So, but anything is possible in March Madness. But 24 hours after the bracket's been revealed, I do have all one seeds, and I'm gonna roll with Baylor beating Illinois. I think it's a coin flip, but I think Baylor gets a championship game here.
I have Baylor and Oklahoma State. I do think the run ends for Cade Cunningham. Actually, no, according to my bracket, I have them beating Baylor, so I will go with the Cowboys. I looked at my bracket wrong. I think Oklahoma State will get the job done and go to the final. I think Cade Cunningham, they already beat Baylor in the Big 12 tournament. I think he can beat them again. I'm going with Cade Cunningham. So I know, Cory, you're a little shocked with that, but hey, sometimes I got to do what I got to do, shock some people. So we all have different matchups. Again, Cory has Gonzaga and Illinois. Zahid, you have Gonzaga and Baylor, and I have Gonzaga and Oklahoma State. Cory, do you think the Zags get it done?
I do not. I have Illinois winning it all. Like I said, I think they are playing the best basketball of any team in the country right now. Just won the Big Ten, the best conference in basketball. You look at them; they are a complete team. They have good guard play. They have good guys down low. They have good role players that can make threes. They play defense well. They play offensive well. They're top 10 in efficiency in both those categories, and that's kind of the true test you want to look at. You want a team that's good on both sides. You don't want just a offensive juggernaut or a defensive juggernaut. I think Illinois fits the mold. They're a team, like I said, we've talked about, they've been battle tested all year long in the Big Ten, whereas a team like Gonzaga hasn't really had to face this competition day in and day out. I think Illinois is a bit built for this tournament, and they get it done. Ayu Dosunmu, he's a name that we will remember by the end of this. He will make his mark in a similar way, like we've kind of talked about that Kemba and some of these other guys have throughout the years.
Zahid, you and Cory, I have to admit, probably have a final that most people are saying is going to happen. You have Gonzaga and Baylor. Who do you think is going to win?
Yeah, I'm gonna roll a Zaga. I think they're unless Baylor can drop 120 points and shoot 80% of the field, it's hard to beat the Zaga team. Their offensive studs. I think it's to be a great matchup if it comes down to it. But I have Zaga pulling this one off.
And I have Gonzaga and Oklahoma State, and I will end Cade Cunningham's run here. I'm not joking this time. They will actually lose to Gonzaga. I just think Gonzaga is the best team. If you've seen the regular season schedule, they've beaten teams not in their conference, so they have beaten quote unquote somebody's. And the thing that clinches it is I had a conversation with Gonzaga's radio broadcaster today, Tom Hudson. He's a great guy. So because he was such a great guy, that basically put me over the top for Gonzaga. So stick around, by the way, for that interview for that. That's coming out in a few days. But I am going with Gonzaga to win the national championship. So, man, it took us basically an hour to get through this bracket. But at the end of it, me and Zahid both have Gonzaga winning. Cory is going with Illinois. Fellas, obviously, we know this bracket is going to get busted. No one's ever had the perfect bracket. No one ever will. But we are all very excited for this. I wanted to ask you kind of to close out this conversation and this podcast, what's kind of something you look for, in terms of like this could happen in terms of an upset, or this is something that could just bust up the brackets? For me, I think it's great coaching. We've seen Michigan State make some good runs. We've seen Syracuse make some good runs. UNC is an 8 seed. I think they're a team you could watch out for in Baylor's region. So I'm going to say great coaching with some of these lower seeds can really help propel not even a Cinderella team, but maybe like an 8 or 9 seed to deep in the tournament. Zahid, I'll go with you. Anything you kind of look for to like, man, this is something you have to really watch if you think this might be an upset or even just another storyline in the tournament?
Yeah, I think it's the character of the players. I think when you look at some of the squads in the past, the DNA of the players tells you a lot about their tournament run. So obviously, great coaching. You need to have great coaching. You can't make it that far without having great coaching. But the players, they understand this is win or go home, and everything you work for the whole season, especially during a COVID year. These guys, every single team, their guys gonna play their guts out, leave everything on the court. So I think it's ultimately going to come down to the team that that wants it the most and has the chemistry rolling. So there's a lot of different elements, but the DNA of the players, I think, is going to be a key factor.
Cory, what are you looking for? I mean, what's something that could happen that could really bust brackets? I mean, is there a quality that you see that tends to happen?
I mean, I think you look at it, it really comes down to, I was reading something about this today. It's not about the ceiling of these better seats. It's about really the floor for them. And if they play more towards their floor, they can be in trouble. If a team plays more towards has like a lower floor than if they have a higher ceiling type thing. So I think you look at some of these teams that kind of have a gimmicky style of play, a team like Arkansas, a team like Alabama, where they kind of run it up and down the court. If it goes wrong for them where they aren't making their threes in one game, they could get in trouble. That's kind of why I picked UConn to potentially beat them in the second round. You hope something gimmicky like that happens. And I think, you look at it at the end of this, I just kind of want to hope that there's no team that gets knocked out because of COVID reasons. There's not a team like you see Baylor or something like that in the Elite Eight or in the Sweet 16, and all of a sudden they have an outbreak and they have to cancel their season. Like how heartbreaking would that be for the kids? So I'm praying none of that happens. I'm praying we just get, good competitive basketball, see some teams bust our brackets because we know it's going to happen. No one's going to have that perfect bracket. See those upsets, see those teams kind of establish their legacy and march on. And that COVID has no impact on really who is crowned the champion at the end of this.
Ditto on all those points. Guys, this has been such a great conversation talking about March Madness. Again, to recap, me and Zahid have Gonzaga winning it all. Cory has Illinois getting the championship. Zahid, to close out this podcast, we always do a rapid fire round with our guests. So we're going to ask you a couple of questions, rapid fire. You ready to be on the hot seat?
I didn't know there was a hot seat of rapid fire. This wasn't in the text beforehand, guys, but let's go. I'm always ready for the hot seat.
All right, I wanted to first start off with, you were, of course, part of the Castle Guard at Virginia Tech. What was your favorite Virginia Tech game you attended?
Oh, man, it's a tough question, but I think it's in my sophomore year versus Georgia Tech. I believe it was snowing that game outside of Castle, and it was just kind of like what I envisioned growing up, Like, I always used to watch Virginia Tech basketball as a little kid, and you saw, like, the campus was snowing, and all the kids were inside of Castle Coliseum. And that's what that kind of game was to me. It was just a snowy Blacksburg day, and all the kids went to Castle Coliseum and cheered their hearts out. So I think that was one of the first games I'm like, man, this is like what I envisioned growing up, and I'm living the dream here. So that game will always have a special place in my heart.
Best March Madness tournament game you've seen?
In general?
Yep, any game, any team.
Ooh, that is a great question. I think there's just so many good games. I think Villanova, that's got to be a classic right there, right? I mean, I think we all remember that game when he shot. That ending was absolutely crazy. One of the best games I've seen.
Drew Brees just retired. Is he a top 5 quarterback of all time?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's top 5.
I agree with you there as well, by the way. We were talking about this earlier. You met Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, and you have a picture with him. Check out Zahid's Instagram. But give us a story. How did you find a way to get a picture with the commissioner of the NBA?
Okay, so I was interning with Madison Square Garden the summer between junior and senior year of college. And I was interning with our WNBA team, the New York Liberty. So I had a close relationship to our COO because I was her intern. And I was working, like, that game was it was a packed slate for me. It was a super busy game on my side. And I saw from the beginning, like, Adam pulled up with his security, and I knew, I'm like, I have to get a picture with Adam Silver. And I was working the whole game, and it was just such a grind. But the last minute, I had some time on my hands. So, I had a credential and everything, I had a badge, and I was in a suit. So I'm like walking over to Adam because they're like in a suite, and have somebody there ready to take a picture. And like his security guard, before I can even get to Adam, he's like, bumping up on me. I'm like, hey, like, can I get a picture with Adam? He's like, no. And then I'm like, I'm like, what's going on here? Like, I work here and everything. And he's like bumping up on me. He's like, nah, beat it. So I was like, all right. So I texted my boss because she was in the suite next to him. And she was Lisa Borders, the WNBA president at the time. She was sitting at the same table as her. So I texted her. I'm like, hey, I need a picture with Adam. Security guard didn't let me do it. So she's like, yeah, just come over to my side. So I go over to her. She says something to Lisa, and Lisa walks over to Adam and is like, Adam, hey, she says to him. So I get a picture with Adam. I did, my caption for that photo was, I used to be the commissioner of my fantasy football league, so I've been in your shoes before. It just gave me a cool, man. Probably like, I don't know this kid. I don't know what's wrong with this kid. I don't know why you would say that. But no, I felt pretty damn good in that moment. I definitely looked back to the security guard as like, gotcha, buddy. But yeah, that was an awesome moment. We got a picture with him and Lisa Borders, 2 very incredible people. But yeah, he's very tall. I didn't expect him to be so tall because obviously he looks so short on TV next to the guys, but he's actually pretty damn tall.
For sure. And my final question for you, again, you are a big Virginia Tech basketball fan. Give me your immediate reaction when Ahmed Hill's tip did not go in at the buzzer against Duke in the Sweet 16. What did you
Billy,
think?
I cannot believe you asked that question. I cannot believe you asked that question. That's my least favorite sports moment of all time. When I was watching that game at Sharkies, and when I saw that tip and not go in, well, I tell you, my stomach sunk. It was just a feeling that I've never been through, and my body never been through. It was just the most heartbreak I've felt in an immediate moment. I was devastated for the whole week. Like anybody that saw me I didn't say a word the rest of the night. Anybody saw me on campus, if Cory was like walking past me that week, he just knew, not just saying anything. The kid's grieving, just anybody that knew me was just like, sorry, man. Like that's definitely the most painful sports moment I've been through my whole life. I dreamt about it, I think like 3 days straight, just the tip in, just missing. It was just my nightmare for the whole night. It was devastating. It was devastating. But
Let me ask you one more too, real quickly. Who's your favorite VT basketball player of all time then?
my favorite VT basketball player of all time has got to be Eric Green. He was a guy that I had a basketball hoop in my backyard. He was a guy that I went out there and tried to mimic. I think it was just, he led the country in scoring, being on a rough team, and just carried the team on his back, night in, night out. I wish he got more opportunity to play in the NBA, but that was the guy that I, went into my backyard and try to mimic his form and all that. But love Eric Green.
So, Cory, you obviously heard all of Zahid's answers. What do you think about the stuff he said? Do you agree? Is there maybe another game you think of? I mean, what do you think?
No, it's funny. Like when you said the March Madness question about favorite game of all time, I immediately went to the Villanova UNC game too. Like that to end, a national championship on a buzzer beater. Like that's all you can ask for. That was one heck of a game. I also think about that Wisconsin game when they did beat that Kentucky team that was undefeated. That's one of my favorite games of all time because I was rooting heavily for Wisconsin that year because I had them winning it all, and they fell one game short. I would have had like a $200 or $300 prize if they had won it, but so a lot of financial investment was on the line there in a bracket pool. But I had asked him that question at the end too because I'm always curious about that because there's so many greats, and I think the guy that I always say is Malcolm Delaney. He's the guy that when I first started watching Hokies basketball, he was the man. So I think him, and then from the most previous years, J-Rob, you can't go wrong with him as well. So I think those are almost like the three guys throughout the times. Like you had your beginning years for at least us from when we remember Hokie basketball, you had Delaney kind of in those beginning years with Greenberg. You had Eric Green kind of in those middle stages, and then you had J-Rob over these last couple of years. Those have kind of been the three guys that have carried Virginia Tech basketball as of late, especially from the point guard position. So always curious to ask people about that as well.
I agree with you guys. I would have to go Justin Robinson mainly because I met him freshman year in Harper Hall. We're best buddies since then. Just joking, but I met him freshman year before he got big. So I'm gonna go Justin Robinson as my favorite player. I agree with you, Cory. Villanova over UNC. That's great. And I think the thing about it is people forget Marcus Page made a incredible shot right before Chris Jenkins, but no one remembers that because Chris Jenkins did the buzzer beater. So I think that's something else that you have to keep in mind. And we're just very excited. Zahid, I agree with you. Very sad after the Hokies lost to Duke. But the one thing I will say is we all know even if Ahmed Hill made that shot, Kerry Blackshear would have fouled out the first minute of overtime. So at the end of the day, it is what it is. They lost to a better
Billy.
team.
Come on. The worst part is you also think about the game before, like the UCF Duke game where Taco Fall and all that.
UCF should have won that one.
It's tough. But I do want to ask you guys though, what was your favorite Virginia Tech basketball game when you guys were students?
Cory, I believe you've said Duke. One of the Duke games is your favorite.
The win over Duke when Chris Clark had the game-winning tip on Nikhil's overshot, or if he wants to call it a pass. I just remember that game because it was just like we were down literally the whole game and then had a big run at the end. And I think that was like the first lead other than maybe like the first 2 or 3 minutes in the game. And I just remember immediately all that happened in a flash and you're just storming the court and it was just super fun. So that's the game that always sticks out the most to me.
I would have to go Virginia Tech UVA, the double overtime win when I think it was London Parentes who had that layup that just kind of sat at the top of the rim and sat down, hits the game winner in overtime. He actually, I think the next home games that you'd probably remember better than me. I think he hit another game winner against Clemson. So that was kind of the year of set down. But I would say that just because UVA is UVA and, double overtime, that doesn't happen too much in in basketball. And also, I would say, Zahid, you would remember our freshman year when Tech beat Princeton in the NIT. That was a pretty good game too. That game went to overtime. That's Jalen Hudson. He ends up going to Florida and has a good career there. But I would also say that as a game that stands out to me.
Yeah, there's just so many good memories, man. You look back at it, and those games are, if you ever just watch an old Virginia basketball game, and you just think to yourself, man, we were living the life. Like, it was just such a good time. Some of the most memorable moments of college was, at those basketball games. So we certainly lived it up, and I think we're all grateful, just to have a good team and, be playing in the ACC against the best competition, watching some of the best competitors in the game, and doing that. So, it's great times.
Zahid, I believe we have broken the record for longest podcast ever at about an hour and 10 minutes, but it's because you're such an intriguing guy with all of your stories and your great March Madness picks. Thanks so much for joining us today, man. Really can't say how much I appreciate it. Great to reconnect after a long time, too.
Yeah, likewise, guys. And let's run this back soon. I believe our Hokies women's basketball team is the 7th seed, so we gotta run to the women's bracket as well. And to your no surprise at all, I have them winning it all as well. So go Hokies. Double national. When's the last time we had a men's and women's same team win the national championship, Billy? Do you know that from the top?
Florida,
yeah. Florida won men's.
Or no, that was football and basketball.
I think UConn might have done it maybe one year.
I feel like UConn, yeah.
Men's or women's? Okay, well then we'll be the second team.
When UConn won it one of those 2 years, their women's team had to have won it one of those years as well.
Yeah.
So
2021, mark it down. Hokies men's and women's basketball team.
Watch out for Baylor, though. They have a real shot at being the women's and men's team.
That's true. That is a good point. Yeah, and in serious analytical, Cory is right. But in the Hokie fandom world, we're winning the men's and women's championship. Maybe throwing Hokies, wrestling, and baseball.
All in there.
All in, baby. All in on the Hokies.
Yes, sir.
Here.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you guys having me on.
For sure. And Cory, very excited for March Madness and see what plays out with our brackets.
Yeah, can't wait till well, actually the Hokies are the first game, so hopefully that's not the one that gets the first loss, but maybe the second game. Can't wait for that second game to come on and already be losing a game. So looking forward to that as well.
For sure. Well, this has been such a pleasure on the latest edition of Real Talk with Billy and Cory. Once again, we thank our special guest, Virginia Tech alum and current New York City resident, Zahid Khan, for joining us on the latest edition of Real Talk with Billy and Cory. For my podcast partner, Uncle Cornelius Michael Van Dyke, I am Hot Take Billy Parvatam on hand. So long to you guys for just a while. Stay tuned for March Madness, and we'll talk to you soon. Love you 3000.